why he converted, because the previous parents, he had one and only daughter, and he liked this person. He said, "You marry my daughter, you're going to become, after I leave this world, you'll become a billionaire. You'll own everything." So that's what happened, and he totally threw away Yiddishkeit completely. And here, I believe Sodus is coming to his door, Erev Yom Kippur, knocking on his door, and he tells him, it's never too late to do tshuva. He's knocking on his son's door, his son was like so anti, but it's sad they could do that. Doesn't mean we should go knocking on doors of people who, are like, and tell, oh, tonight's Yom Kippur, you can do tshuva, but a tzaddik has a certain connection. He came to Shonda Yom Kippur, and he gave him a talus, and the whole Kippur was crying and crying and crying and crying, mamish like really doing tshuva. The end of Yom Kippur, when it came to Ne'ilah, when they say Shema Yisrael very loud, and then Baruch Hashem 3 times, Hashem Elokim 7 times. Towards the end of Ne'ilah, there's a part, right? They use, what I'm talking about? Hashem Elokim, scream very loud, Hashem Elokim, Hashem Elokim, and opened up the Aron Kodesh, and he put his head into the Aron Kodesh, holding on to the Sifrei Torah, and he was screaming, Hashem, with all his might, he was screaming and screaming. And the last time he collapsed. That was it. That was his tshuva. He came into the next world totally pure, real about tshuva. Could do tshuva in one moment if it's a sincere tshuva. And now there's no minion. Right? Yeah. So came to Ma'ariv, there's no minion, right? It's only exactly 10 people. So the Rabbi Osdoba says that being that he's the tshuva, he's in the level of a tzaddik. It says tzaddikim, even after they pass away, they're still considered alive. So therefore, he's still part of the minyan, and they daven Ma'ariv with the minyan. So this shows us the power of tshuva. Powerful story. Okay, so we're going to go back to so the other sheets that I gave out. We'll just discuss things around the sheet. If we still have the sheet, if not, we're going to just discuss it. That is, are you prohibited to touch food on Yom Kippur? Who knows? You're allowed to touch food on Yom Kippur?
Yeah.
You're not. The Rebbe holds you allowed to touch food on Yom Kippur. Preparing food, you should not prepare food for children unless they require your assistance. They need your help, and it doesn't have to be like so thought out. Like, do they really need my help? If they need your help, they need your help. We don't have to be like, well, you can really do it on your own. But if they don't want and they want you to help them, you could. It's okay. If they're totally fine on their own to prepare, you should not be preparing food for children. When you prepare food, there's a concern that you might come to eat because you're involved in the food. We discussed Negovas and Yom Kippur. We discussed that up to the knuckles. We discussed that. Okay. Okay, so I have another sheet here that I want to give you. I think I have another. If not, she's making more copies downstairs. Havdalah for Matzah Yom Kippur. Very simple sheet. Anybody who wants to go downstairs? Copies should be there. Anybody who wants to? You? Okay. So, left side, Havdalah and Matzah Shabbos. So you see on the left side is Havdalah for Matzah Shabbos, Havdalah for Matzah Yom Tov, Havdalah for Matzah Yom Kippur, the order of the Havdalah. So you have to choose, like there's a you're going to choose from here. What is the order? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What Havdalah do we do? right? So that's what you're gonna choose. You're gonna write 2, 3, 4, 3, 1, 4, 4. Make sense?
Like in order of importance, or
No, not order. What's the order of those? What, like, let's have Donuts to Shabbos, okay? Donuts to Shabbos, let's say, I'm gonna just, I go for 1, and then we do 5. That's not the correct answer, so I'm just like throwing a idea. Okay, so first we're gonna write 1, then goes 5, and then goes 3, let's say. What's the order of the It's a little more complicated for you. I mean, you don't usually do Havdalah, you listen to Havdalah. Whereas there's other things to yourself. So make it a little challenging, but try, and then we'll do it together. Okay. Wait till she Okay, anyone has something for Havdalah and Matzah Shabbos? Anyone wants to try something? Thank you. Who does not have anything? You get one? No. Who wants to try Havdalah and Matzah Shabbos? Havdalah and Matzah Shabbos, yes?
1, 2, 3, 5.
Very good. You get it? You get it, so it's very. You put the order of Havdalah, same like before, you're choosing from the bottom, you're putting the numbers. What is the order of Havdalah and Matzah Shabbos? So it's 1, 2, 3, 5.
Okay. I'm going to do next one.
Alright?
We're going to do next one. Next.
Oh. Sorry. Havdalah and Matzah Yomtiv. What's Havdalah and Matzah Yomtiv? Anyone?
1, 5.
Very good. I'm gonna try it again. 1 and 5. That's a Gofin and the Bracha of Amamdu. Yeah, Havdalah Matzim Kippur. Havdalah Matzim Kippur. What do we have here?
1, 4, 5.
1, 4, 5 is correct. Yep. And if it is on Shabbos, then it's 1, 2, 4, 5. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Very good. Okay, so now we're going to go to discuss Sukkot. So, by the way, just interesting story about Yom Kippur. So we discussed that on Rosh Hashanah we keep 2 days because our ancestors kept 2 days because there was actually a possibility that there will be 2 days in Rosh Hashanah. So the question is, what about Yom Kippur? Why don't we keep Yom Kippur 2 days? It's a difference. They kept Rosh Hashanah 2 days. So Charlotte kept Yom Kippur 2 days. Why don't we keep Yom Kippur 2 days? The explanation is because our sages had Rachmanis, had pity on us, and they said it's too much to make us fast for 2 days. However, there was a tzaddik, Rabbi Yitzchak Mebaditchev. He lived in the times of Dal Rebbe, and he actually would fast for 2 days. He fasted 2 days on Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur the day afterwards. The story actually goes, I don't know if this happens every Yom Kippur, but the specific details I'm saying now. The fasting seems that he did fast every Yom Kippur, but he once came to a shul, and his minig was it's unusual because it's not really the protocol in halacha that what he did, but tzaddikim on a high level, and they're coming from a different angle. So sometimes we see them doing things and we're like, what are we doing? But they're coming from a different angle. He came to a show, and it was before Yom Kippur, and then it was time for Kol Nidre, and he went over to the Amid by himself, davening to be the Chazan. And the Lachlan says you're not supposed to go on your own unless you're asked to. He went on his own, because that's where so they can know where they belong. Nothing to do with being arrogant, obviously. It's thinking this is he was the first, he went to David. First the people were like, what's going on? Then they heard him davening, they realized that he belonged, that he was in the right place. He davened the whole Kuli day and the whole Ma'ariv. And then afterwards, they saw that he went over to the Svarim shelf and he took out a Gemara. The Gemara, the Sechta, the retracted Yuma, the Mishnais Yuma that speaks about the avoid of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, the whole service of the Kohen Gadol did on Yom Kippur. And there's the Gemara with the Talmud that goes into depth. So he pulled out a Gemara, Yuma. You were watching it standing in the beginning of the reception. You started learning it. You were watching it. And so the way he was learning it, that he wasn't just reading it, but he was really really into it. Next page. Was standing. And how long could they stand watching it? We just left. The next morning they came back early, so he was still standing there. And he was ready up to by the end of the reception. So the whole night he was standing and learning the Gemara Yuma, standing, not sleeping, and standing and learning the Gemara. And then he finished the Gemara and he went straight to the Amid again and he davened all the tefillahs, the whole Yom Kippur. And then afterwards they thought that he was going to go make Havdalah. He didn't make Havdalah. He went back, I guess he was staying somewhere. Then he asked for a Masechta Sukkah. Now he's going to learn Gemara Sukkah. He stayed up the whole night. Maybe this time he wasn't standing, maybe he was sitting. And he learned the whole Gemara Sukkah the whole night. And he fasted for 2 days. I don't know whether Tzaddikim who did it, but that's the story that I heard. Okay, so let's move on with Sukkot. Any questions about Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah? Okay, so there's a custom, the mincha of Erev Rosh Hashanah, because it's the last prayer of the year, right? Mincha, Erev Rosh Hashanah is the last tefillah of the year. So it's brought down, you should daven with tremendous kavanah. That's the last prayer, to get in the last prayer with a lot of kavanah. That's what it's brought down. So we're going to start discussing the halachas of Sukkah. And there it is, there's a mitzvah to sit in a sukkah. The mitzvah is for men. Men are obligated to sit in a sukkah, to eat in a sukkah. The obligation of eating in a sukkah is only when it comes to specific foods, like mezainos, moitzi. Men are not obligated to eat every single food in the sukkah. They're only obligated to eat moitzi, mezainos, and only eating it a certain amount, like over, let's say, 1.5, 1 3/4 of an ounce. But actually, I want to first discuss the sukkah itself. So, what makes a kosher sukkah? You know, yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
So, what makes a kosher sukkah? Even though I don't think any are planning to build a sukkah, but it's good to know the basics. And sometimes people travel and they go places, and it's good to have an idea, because there's a lot of misconceptions about a kosher sukkah. A kosher sukkah has to have minimally 3 walls. It's interesting that it's all in the word sukkah. How do you spell the word sukkah? Sukkah is spelled. How do you spell sukkah? Anyone? Samach. I'm going to try to make it more like, I'm not good at drawing, but I want to bring out the point of it. Here's sukkah, right? So if you write it, you see how this is? Sukkah, 4, 3, 2.5. In the word of sukkah is hinted what is a kosher sukkah. 4 walls, 3 walls, and even 2.5 walls. That's the amount of walls that you need. The schach has to be from something that comes from the ground, or grows from the ground. Even if it does grow from the ground, but if you made it into a keli, let's say you took twigs of wood, 2x4s, different pieces of wood, and cut it into pieces, and you built a chair out of it, Now the wood, this chair comes from the ground. But once you make it into a keli, it's mekabel tumah, it's a receptacle for impurity. We learn from the Torah that this is not kosher skach. And even if the chair breaks and it's not a receptacle for impurity anymore because it's a broken chair, you can't use it anymore. But being that once upon a time this was a keli, it was a receptacle for impurity, it's not kosher for schach. The amount of schach that you need has to be more shade than sun. In simple language, that means that there's to be more schach than space. So if you go to a sukkah and it's very little schach, this is a kosher sukkah, and this does happen a lot when you come to commercial places. Many times they have events, they have away trips, and they put up a sukkah for they hire someone, just put up a sukkah just like that. And there's sometimes the walls aren't done properly or the schach. So you have to make sure there's more schach than airspace. If there's more schach than airspace, you're good. Minik Chabad is to put a lot of schach. A lot of schach. That's minik Chabad. But halachically, if you have more schach than airspace, it's a kosher sukkah. If there's so much schach that the rain can't come through, it's not a kosher sukkah. Because if the rain can't come through, then it's called a house, not a sukkah. Because in your house, it doesn't rain. The rain doesn't come through your roof. Hope so. So, Minich Chabad is we put a lot of schach. And if you put a lot of schach, no, it's actually even with, no, so you have to make sure, usually even when you put, let me go back, even you put a lot of schach, the rain will usually come through. But there's another issue. The issue is, you should be able to see the stars. If you put a lot of schach, you can't see the stars. So it's brought down from one of the Rabbeim, not sure who. One of the Rabbeim said, what you can do is, you take a stick, because if you have a lot of schach, you can't see the stars, take a stick and poke it through in a few places. You'll be able to see the stars. Doesn't say how many places. You poke a few places and you're able to see the stars. Now, here, yeah. Schach. Okay, how do you write schach? What schach is written like this? Sama, Both, Langecha. Now the walls. We said 2.5 walls. Many Chabad, there should be 4 walls, 4 complete walls, but ultimately it's 2.5 walls. Now here's something very important, and that is that it can happen, and it does happen. I've seen it. I see it all the time. People build sukkahs, and they don't know, really the way it should be is someone builds a sukkah before sukkahs. You should have someone who knows the halachas, a Rav, anyone who knows the halachas well, to come in and take a look at the sukkah and make sure it's kosher. I'm not sure why it's not done. When it comes to anything else, there's a requirement for hechsher. The esrog, there's a hechsher. Everything else is a hechsher. Everything, a sefer Torah, tefillin, mezuzahs. I'm not sure why it's like that, but there should be a change at some point that people should know that you build a sukkah. Don't just assume your sukkah is kosher because you built it and you grew up religious and you always saw that building a sukkah means nothing. I see many sukkahs that are just not proper. So I'll give you one example, and that is, everyone knows, okay, walls, schach, very good. Now, what's called, and I have a wall around my sukkah. I'm going to build a sukkah, I'm going to put up schach, and I'm going to put if the schach, let's give an extreme version, yeah? I'm going to build a little sukkah here. I'm going to put schach, next to me, there's no roof over here, okay? So I'm putting up schach here, right in the middle of the room. Imagine there's no roof on the whole room, okay? There's no roof, no ceiling, nothing, okay? Can you imagine that? Okay, good. Now I'm going to put up schach over here. Whatever I have 2x4s, coming this way, that way, and I have a way I have to put. I don't need such a big sukkah. I just need to give you an example. This is a small sukkah, okay? So I'm putting up stock over here. Oh, I need walls. Okay. The walls are still there. Okay, we're imagining that there's no ceiling, but the walls are still there somehow. They're still there. I have a wall. I have 4 walls, and I have stock over here. How much space is between the walls and the stock? About 10, I don't know, 6 feet, 8 feet. If you have at least, if you have more than 9 inches of space, just to be safe, it's like 9.6. If you have more than 9 to make it simple, you have more than 9 inches of space between the wall and the schach, the wall is not a wall. You get it? Because there's a break, there's a space between. So it happens, it's a very common mistake. I see it many times. The schach, and the wall is there, and there's no space, and there's nothing between the wall and the schach. So the wall is not a wall. Now, you don't need 4 walls, you have 2.5 walls, it's also good. Okay, fine. But I've seen sukkahs with 2 walls. 2 walls is not good. I mean, officially that 4 walls, but the other 2 walls, there was such a gap between the wall and the schach. The wall is not a wall. So if you don't know the halachas, you walk in. Beautiful sukkah. Look, it's massive. The schach is covering very well. A lot of schach, many chabad, a lot of schach. And there's walls. But the walls are living in their own world. The walls are not connected to the sukkah. Something to be aware of. Then you have an issue with sometimes you have a sukkah that the walls are not sturdy. These flappy sukkahs, these canvas sukkahs that move around, they're extremely problematic. And because a wall needs a wall that's stationary, that's not moving around. So if the wind blows it around, it's not a wall. Now there is leniency. There's some opinions that are lenient that they say that it can move up to 9.6 inches. So it's up to 9.6 inches. Then there is a leniency. 9.6 inches is about how much is not a lot. It's about this. From finger to finger, finger to finger. That's it. So if it flaps around within this amount, then there is opinions that say it's okay. And not everybody agrees to that. If it's more, then forget it. So here there is some leniency, but it's not. Many opinions don't agree with this. Many opinions say a wall has to be in one place. So what a lot of people do is, and the companies who sell the sukkahs, what they create a situation because really the wall doesn't have to be all the way. Here's something else interesting. We learned now that the wall is within 9 inches to the schach. Now, the wall going up doesn't have to be all the way up to the schach. I can make a wall going up to here. Here. About here. And if you want to be strict, here. That's it. Then it can have empty space all the way up. And as long as the schach is not more than 30 feet from the ground, so it could be a huge gap from the wall to the schach. How do you hold up the schach? It's a technical thing. You can have 2x4s, whatever it is. You have ways how to hold up schach. Then go on President Street, on the Bashka, depending on the sukkah over there, you'll see over there how they did it. They have a wall going up to here. There's a huge gap, like windows are totally open, but it's fine. And the schach, but only the schach has to be directly over. Next, the schach could be moved a little bit also, within 9 inches. The schach, make it simple, just keep the schach all the way on top, flush with the wall, and it's totally fine. So based on that, what a lot of companies do is they sell a sukkah, those cheap sukkahs made out of plastic, it's much cheaper, and they make different things on the cross so you could put straps. Now, let me explain what are the straps about. Well, so let's go back for a second to something else. What is a wall? What is a wall? Wall is a wall. Well, a gate is a gate a wall. Look at those bars. Look at those bars, yeah? If I make a gate like that, is that a wall? I'm going to say, no, there's a bunch of holes in it. It's not a wall. No, it's a wall. It's called a wall. As long as the bars are within 3 inches, 9 inches. Well, as long as they're within 9 inches to each other, right? It has to be within 9 inches to each other. It should be within 9 inches. See? Now, within 9 inches to each other, it's considered a wall. Based on that, now this is 100%. Based on that, what they're doing is you'll notice now. Go later on Kingston Avenue, places commercial sukkahs. It's very common they use this method. Walk inside, you can see there's on the bottom the scraps. You notice it, the scraps on the bottom. They're trying to create that type of wall with the scraps. So they're putting scraps within 9 inches of each other, and now they created this wall that goes up to about here, let's say. And if the scraps are tight, then you can take the word if and you can highlight it and underline it a few times, and even that won't help most of the time because you get a lot of switching most of the time. It's many times you walk into the sukkahs and it's just flapping back and forth. It's not always done properly, and it's definitely, even if it is done properly, it's definitely not in the spirit of Minhag Chabad. The Minhag Chabad is to have specifically 4 walls for a reason, to make sure that everything is 1000%. You buy those sukkahs with straps, you get into issues. Are the straps tight? They are tight, they're not tight. It was tight, but someone played with it. They didn't know, I didn't realize. It's not proper. It's not like a tefillah to buy these sukkahs. Now, there is another problem. And that is that even if you use these straps and you make it into a proper sukkah, because it's like a wall, so within 9 inches and it's tight, but there is an opinion of the Magen Avram that says that if the walls are not complete walls, then the walls like those bars, even if it's solid, good, within 9 bars, within 9 inches to each other, the Magen Avram says, clearly said, he himself has a doubt, but he says there's an issue. He says it should be 4 complete walls. So even though generally a sukkah doesn't have to have 4 complete walls, only 2.5 walls, but if the walls you are using is not regular walls like this, but the walls are just bars, and that's how you're creating a wall, then it should be 4 complete walls. Now, just to make it clear, 4 complete walls doesn't mean that there's no doors, okay? It doesn't mean it goes through the sky. Of course, you can have doors, but it should be 4 complete walls means because the minimum size of a wall is approximately between 22 and 24 inches. That's the size of a wall. And then you can have space. You can have doors, obviously. So that's another issue. Even with those sukkahs that they're using the straps, they're putting the straps on 3 sides. So even if the straps are tight, but if that's the wall they're using, it should be 4 walls. So those sukkahs are not proper sukkahs. Now, even though you're not obligated, women aren't obligated to eat in the sukkah, but you want to have the mitzvah. And when you go into the sukkah and you eat something, you say a bracha v'yeshiva sukkah when required, as we'll discuss. If it's not a kosher sukkah, you're saying a bracha in vain. There's no mitzvah. So even though you're not obligated, but you still need to know what's a kosher sukkah. Any questions so far? Another halacha regarding sukkah, and that is that the Chachamim al Seder prohibited us from using something that's not kosher schach to hold up the schach. So let's say you want to put metal bars going across the sukkah, and then you're going to put the schach on top of the metal bars. You're not allowed to do that, though it's not going to invalidate the sukkah. And that's something everyone knows about. Everyone is very careful that they know you can't use metal bars, anything that's not kosher for schach, to hold up schach. But in the event that someone does do it, happens to be the sukkah is still kosher. Some people think that it's about touching each other, that the schach is not supposed to touch the metal. Not about touching. We can't have something that's not kosher holding up schach. Made of screen, because this might need you to actually use it for the schach itself. So when you're building a sukkah and you want to put beams across the sukkah to hold up the schach, that's what people use. They don't use metal, they use 2x4s. Usually it's more practical anyways. So the 2x4s are kosher schach because it's wood, it comes from the ground. Now you can ask a question. Why don't we use the 2x4s itself for schach? When those are 2x4s, right? Those, you know what I'm talking about 2x4s? Anybody else? No? When they build, you have these, you go to the hardware store and you buy long pieces of wood. It's like, it's long. It's like narrow and long. They use it when they build. They want to build something temporary, whatever. Yeah, you know what? So it's wood. It's manufactured. It's not grown on the tree like that. It's not a kingdom. It's technically kosher schach. We use it to hold up the schach. The custom is you don't use it for the schach itself, and the reason is because if you use it, you may end up putting it too close to each other. They're very smooth, right? They're very even, right? So if you put it flush to each other in such a way, you might end up putting it in a way that rain can't come through. Rain has to be able to come through. If rain can't get through, it's not a sukkah, it's a house. So because they're so even, or any other of these even, nice, these are what you buy in the store, they're very smooth and even, good. So if you could technically just throw them up next to each other, halachically it would be kosher. Now, if someone did it, it's not going to make the sukkah possible. The things we discussed before about the wall being far away from the schach, that's a major issue. But if someone does end up using this because he didn't realize, it's still going to be kosher because it's kosher schach. The custom is we don't use it because you might end up putting it too close, and that's how it's usually used. And then no rain can get through. No rain can get through. It's not a kosher sukkah.
And we're talking about the 2x4s from the schach?
Yes. Right. So to hold up the schach, how am I going to be so strict about that? That's technically kosher schach. That's just to hold up the schach, so that's fine. Now you could use nails to hold the schach from not falling off. That's not holding the schach. So by the end of the sukkah, you bang the nails so the bamboos don't fall off. So at some point you might remember, I learned that you can't use something that's not kosher for schach to hold up the schach. It is to hold up the schach. But it's not really holding it up. It's holding up the bamboos. The bamboos are holding by itself. You're putting a nail at the edge because you don't want the bamboo to fall off. So that shouldn't be a problem, unless it's actually holding it. It's going to fall because on a slant. You build this, hypothetically speaking, you're building in a way that the bamboos are going to fall off. And not in a nail, so the nail will hold the bamboos, then you shouldn't do that. And again, even if someone does it, not knowingly, it doesn't invalidate the sukkah because it's kosher schach. Our sages prohibited, and they said, l'chatchila, you don't do such thing. You don't use something that's not kosher for schach to hold up schach. Now, another interesting halacha, share one halacha, and that is that they sell rope, and some of the ropes come from the ground. Now, the question is, if you look at the Greeks, you can find out they grow from the ground, and they manufacture, they make rope out of it. Now, can you use this rope for schach? Imagine somebody rope, you go, you can't rope. But because it doesn't have its original appearance, it doesn't look like it goes to the ground, I was saying it's privilege. But to use it to hold down the schach, to hold up the schach, same, by the way, hold up, hold down, the same thing. Put something on the schach to hold it down, it's also not supposed to do. To use it to hold up or to hold down the schach, that is okay. So not for the schach itself, but being that it comes from the ground, and you want to hold up the schach or hold down the schach with this rope, if you know that it comes from the ground, it is okay to be used. Okay, we'll stop here. We should go to Ksirch Subateva, Tutkeven Shiar. See you all back, Mitzvah Hashem.